Welcome to today's tutorial. In this video, I will teach you exactly how not to make resin art. For the third art design in my series of 4, where I'm using all of the same types of materials to create different pieces of art, I'm going to be drawing in pencil first and then covering with a glue gun a more detailed design than I'm used to. Whenever the person I'm making these for chooses their final design, it's going to be on a 3x5 foot canvas. So keep in mind that when I do a design on here that's small, if this is chosen, it's going to be blown up into a much bigger size. The person that's hired me to make them a custom painting sent me a few examples of photos of art that they liked, and none of them were with resin, but one of them had a bit of a swirl design to it. So I would use that design with my glass and make that the 3D portion of the painting, and then from there I will fill in resin around it. It's going to be much different and not a geode kind of look compared to what I'm used to doing. So I'm going to, again, start with pencil and then cover with the glue gun. And then from there I'm going to use this Testors brand enamel paint that is used for models, like model cars or model airplanes, boats, things like that. It goes on very smoothly and it's very shiny when it's dry, and I actually mix it into my resin as well on many occasions. So I will be using that over the glue and to fill in the spaces after I've completed drawing the design with the pencil and the glue. Just going to finish painting up this corner. If you can tell, I'm at the end of my silver paint. And I don't say I'm the Frugal Resinista for nothing. I'm trying to finish up this jar of it completely before I open another one. What's important with doing this are these raised lines with the glue. And so I'm sure you can tell that in here I'm not covering super well, but I don't really care about that because all of this is going to be covered with my stones anyway. This just kind of gives a little space where if you could see through any little crack in the stones, there's color underneath. So I'm not really worried about that, but I'm going to finish every last drop of my silver paint before I open the next one. And then we're going to let this whole thing dry. The enamel paint is very much worth using. It's not expensive, and I feel like it goes on very smoothly, but it does take longer to dry. So I'm going to finish painting up this corner, and then we'll let this dry for a while, and then we will add the stones with clear resin. Now that this piece is a little bit more dry, I'm going to go ahead and tape the edges. For this particular piece, I am not going to let the resin run over the edges. I would like it to stay on the top, and then I'm going to do a thick coating of this silver enamel paint around the edges to just make it look smooth and tie it together. That being said, I am going to use some extra wide painter's tape because I want a lot of the tape to be able to be folded underneath so that if I were to get a leak of resin that came over, it wouldn't get beneath my tape and get onto the back of the canvas. Resin will climb tape and kind of come up at the edges right along your tape line. So I am not going to make this tape any higher than my glue gun lines. It's going to be just enough higher above the edge of the piece that it will keep things from running off the edge. And because I'm only doing right now the clear resin that is going to hold all of my glass, I'm not even going to do too thick of resin along the edges because this has some big edges here where the glass could fall off. I'm just going to get enough resin that it'll hold it in place. And then when I do all my other colors and things and then a clear coat, that will hold everything down better. Right, I have really packed in the glass on these, and I had a little bit of resin spill over in a couple spots, so I made sure that I got the glass out of those sections as much as possible. so that my edges all are pretty clear. When this is cured in about 24 hours, I will actually tip these over and let all the extra glass fall off. I'm sure in addition to these pieces here, there are going to be spots that are right on top that the glass hasn't stuck down, and that's totally fine. I would rather have too much and pack it all in to make sure everything's covered than not have enough and have a bunch of empty spots. So we will come back to all of this in a day or two, and I will start doing all the colors. I've got these poured, and a couple things that I did wrong. I overfilled both of them, so you can see I've gone totally over my lines in a few of these spaces. It'll still give the general idea, but I think I was worried about not having enough, and so I overfilled. But the other thing that's happening too is I'm using cheaper canvas right now because I didn't want to spend all the money on a really good one, but I probably should have, or put something under it, because what happened, if you can tell, like in these sections here, everything's going to the middle. So that's because I've got a cheaper canvas and it's kind of sagging. Normally I put like a couple magazines underneath to keep it even, and I just forgot. It doesn't matter too much for these, but whichever design ends up being picked, I will very much put things underneath it when I pour, and I'll show you the whole process for that. Other than that though, I've got two very different styles going, and I'm happy with how each one turned out because they're very different from each other, and so the people that are going to be purchasing can get an idea of all the different ways that the resin can be poured. So we're going to let these cure, and then I will finish up by showing you how I do the edges, and we'll go from there. All right, it's been 24 hours, and I cannot tell you how much of a hot mess this project has been. It's kind of driving me crazy. I had told you before that some of the resin started kind of moving where I didn't want it and going over the edges because I hadn't put something underneath this. I torched it, I left for an hour, and I came back to torch it again. And all the colors, the dark colors, were running out into the light colors, so I used a popsicle stick and scraped and scraped and scraped them out, which means that I didn't have enough resin left to cover my edges. So big mess, basically, is what happened. If this was a final product that I was giving to someone or selling to someone, I would redo it. But since I'm just trying to do some test pieces, what I'm going to do, and I think this will work pretty well after I've stared at it for a long time, is I'm going to take the tape off just to get out of the way, and then I'm going to go back and just do one more layer with my glue gun right over the top of this and paint it silver again just to kind of hide some of these mistakes. And then in a few spots where the color really got in, like right here where there's so much blue inside of here, I'll add that edge. And then I'm just going to go back in and dab with silver in a few spots with my paintbrush. And then when I put the final clear coat over the whole design, I'll stick some more glass over the top of those. So I'll make this go quick. I know we don't want to spend a lot of time watching it. I'll show you how I finish the edges and all that good stuff, but I'm going to do some repair work real quick right now first. All right, I've done my glue one more time. I'm going to be using the same Testors brand silver enamel paint, and I picked up these little Testors mini brushes. This is also what is used with the tiny little model cars and things. Normally, I don't bother with them because when I lay my brush sideways, I can just go right over the tops of these lines pretty quickly and easily. But just true to how this whole piece is going so far, I don't think that's going to happen. Plus, I need a tiny brush to get into some of these blue areas. So this is going to take me a while. And then we'll move on to the next part of the actual design of this piece. All right, that took way longer than I was expecting, but I think I've got this in a good place now where if I add a few more pieces of the gold glass over these silver sections, I will pretty much mitigate the whole mess that I made. Again, I wouldn't do this if this was a final piece that I was giving someone, but since it's just a test piece, I'm not too worried about it. These edges here where there's white showing, I'm going to mix regular paint, the paint that I use for this part, and just paint over it on the edges. Again, not ideal, but I'm not as worried about it because I'm still going to pour one more coating over this, and so it'll all kind of be underneath. I'm going to let this dry, and then my next step is to add a few more decorative embellishments in these areas, and then possibly in here. I haven't decided yet. And then from there, I will finish off the edges, pour the last coat, and it should be a finished piece, at least in terms of being good enough for my client to see it and decide if they want something similar. The next thing I'm going to do is use the Posca brand acrylic paint pen. and do a couple more just little embellishments in a few spots here. I was thinking about possibly doing them inside as well, but I'm just not sure. This is where, as an artist, you get to decide how you want to do it, but sometimes you wish someone would say, hey, do it like this. And I don't have that right now, and I haven't decided exactly what I want to do. But I'm going to add these embellishments at least. These Posca pens are great. You need to use a piece of paper or something and kind of get the paint started. You don't want to try from a dry pen to start drawing, but if you can get your paint started, then once you put it on here, it'll go on smoothly. So you kind of want to move a little fast so you don't get a shaky line, or at least I do, because I'm not great at holding my hand steady. But I'm going to try it and we'll see what happens here. I've peeled off the tape from the edges of this piece now, and I'm a little happier with how it looks than I was before. True to how this whole project has gone so far, I have more issues I'm dealing with. This corner, for some reason, leaked down into the tape. So even though all of this piece, except for this section, has that teeniest little bit of lip up where it climbed the tape, this section doesn't. So I added one more piece of tape even with this little lip that's left over. I'm going to pour clear resin into these sections up to that lip so that it's all nice and smooth and even. I've been debating on what to do with these colors because I want to do something, but at the same time, I really don't think I feel like it needs any kind of drawn design. So what I've come up with is I'm going to fill these sections with resin as well. And that Pearl X powder pigment in Macro Pearl that I used before to color my white so it was shiny, I'm going to put the teeny tiniest bit of it into my clear that's going in here, just to give these sections a little bit of a pretty sparkle. I feel like this doesn't need too much. I want this to be the opposite of the other pieces that have so much design in them. So I don't want to add too much to it. But on the other hand, these are kind of dull and boring right now, so I'm just going to add the tiniest little bit of shine. And like I talked about before, I'm also going to use some of my clear and just put it over these spots that I painted silver and add some stones in to finish filling that out. I also started looking at mixing this color to go into these little edges, and the more I looked at it, the more I kind of like them. I know that that's not going to be everybody's opinion, but it just gave like one little bit more of design because I already have white here. It made everything not so matte. I don't know if it's something I could repeat if I wanted to, but my plan is to leave that as is, and once the clear coating is over it, it will look more intentional and not like originally I had lost color. I don't know if you can see from the camera angle, but I've signed my name right here. It's white on white, but I used a brighter white. From my angle, I can read it no problem. I tell everyone all the time, make sure you sign your art. Be proud of your art. Sign your art. And I do it on the front of my paintings, but I also hide it. I don't super hide it because I want people to be able to read it, but I also don't want it to take away from the design, like if I had written it right here or something. So my name is in there, and that's going to get sealed in as well. So we're going to go clear over these blue sections, and then I'm going to do clear with the teeniest bit of that powder pigment. I've got my vinyl underneath me again. I don't plan on dripping over the edges. I'm going to fill up to this lip, but just in case I spill as I'm going, I've got that there. And also just in case, this is all sitting just on one tile on either side, just to lift it up from the vinyl the teeniest bit so that if I do get a drip, it's not going to stay on the bottom of my canvas. So I'll fast forward this and we'll get going. my clear coat is on, and my clear coat with a little bit of my Pearl-X powder pigment is in, and I am really happy with how that turned out. That's the first exciting thing in this piece that's been such a mess. I'm going to let this cure overnight, and then my final step will be to paint the edges with my Silver Testers brand enamel paint. It's the same silver that I used on top of my glue lines, and it will tie everything in together, and then this piece will be finished. All right, my top layer of resin has cured, and shocker, stuff didn't work right. I don't know what is going on with this piece, but this piece is what it is, and what it is super frustrating. So after I stopped talking in the last segment, and I had told you that there were tiles under each of these sides to hold this up, I realized, let's make sure there's tiles in the middle so that I don't have the problem I had last time with all of this coming to the middle and flowing out of where it was supposed to be. So I have tiles under the middle here so that this part is raised so that things don't go the wrong way. And hopefully you can't tell too much, but the sparkle in these turned out lovely. So lovely, in fact, that it wanted to migrate. So right here, I don't know if you can see it or not, I have sparkles where these are supposed to be solid blue and not sparkly. Just a quick note, pardon the sound in the background. It is a super cold day here in Michigan, and sharing the wall behind the camera is our heat, and it's making a whole bunch of noise trying to kick out enough heat for our house. So my apologies for that background sound. The last thing I have to do with this, because there's nothing else to do to fix this, and I'm sick of this piece anyway, is I am going to use that Testers enamel paint that I've been using the whole time in the multiple layers of this painting here, and I'm going to paint my edges. You've probably seen in the last videos how I've done my edges, but just a quick note that I might not have said before. I have already peeled this blue, and sometimes blue gets left behind, and I will use my straight razor to scrape it off when necessary, but I've already scraped down to this being flat, so I can actually paint right over the remnants of this blue with no problem, and it will not look bad once the paint's on there because this enamel paint is so cool. So we're going to finish up with this, and then this piece, for better or worse, is finished. So I will show you the finished product here in just a second after I paint it. Thank you everyone so much for watching. As always, I really appreciate you supporting me in that way. If you're here till the very end, thanks for sticking with me because this was a rough one to make. I am happy with the final product, as happy as I can be. Obviously, there's a reason why we make test versions if you're going to make a large piece, because if I had done this straight with a lot of resin on a really huge canvas, I would have wasted a lot of material, and I'm glad I didn't. So thank you for watching. Please stay tuned for the next tutorial, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Have a great day. Bye.